Order the meeting of the Gainesville Community Reinvestment Area Advisory Board, Tuesday, February 21st at 5:37 p.m. Want to apologize to people listening online. We're working on getting the video going, but you should be able to hear. If you have any questions, please present them in the chat and staff will take care of that. All right. First item of business, adoption of the agenda. So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those to adopt the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The agenda has been adopted. Next, move to the approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion for the approval of the minutes? Got a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right. Next item of business, communications. We have communications reports from staff. Okay.
Mr. Chair, Phil Mann, Special Advisor to the City Manager. I only have a couple things to report. On January 19th, the City Commission adopted the GCRA proposed spending plan that staff presented to you all, I think, last month. And so they adopted that. And then today at the City Commission Finance Committee, they recommended to the commission to approve the budget amendments that must happen for FY23 to adopt that part of the plan. And the only other information I have is GCRA Advisory Board membership. We're seeking members and anybody that wants to apply can apply. We have a packed house. Maybe somebody here wants to be a member of the GCRA Advisory. Mr. Chair, that concludes my report. Very brief.
Member Blunt.
After the commission adopted the work plan, the mayor did make a comment, calling up a special workshop. I assume he meant joint between GCRA and the commission. Need further word on that at this point.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Deal is working on that. I think that has been scheduled.
It's they're looking at March 28th, and so we'll make sure to confirm that this week. Make sure to get that communication out.
Staff will get that communication out to the board once the date is confirmed.
Thank you. Great. It sounds like that concludes our communications. On to the consent agenda. Oh,
Mr. Chairman, we didn't do roll call.
oh. Got it. We did not do roll call. All right, let's move to roll call.
Member Brown. Member Brown. Member Fox. Here. Member Heidi is excused. Member Mitchell is excused. Member Northwest. Here. Member Palmer.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Establish that. All right, let's return to the consent agenda. Do you have any items on the consent agenda? Not appear to be so. Do we have any requests to address the board? No. No new requests to address the board. All right, on to the first item of business discussion.
Mr. Chairman, we have the 2023-38 affordable residential infill development plan for city-owned sites at 414 Fifth Avenue and 405 Southwest Fifth Avenue.
Thank you. We have our consultant here today who will be providing a presentation, about 10 to 15 minute presentation, and then we will leave time for questions. Thank you.
Introduce yourself.
My name is Chelsea Bakaitis. I work for the City of Gainesville Housing and Community Development Department. I used to work for the City of Gainesville GCRA, And so I had began the creation of this plan. And so just kind of working to move it forward today. So this has gone through several community engagement meetings. And so right now the advisory board is our final step in moving forward a plan that we can begin a project. Thank you.
Yes, it looks like we can see one of the questions. Yes, it looks like we can see it.
Hey, y'all, can you hear me? Hello.
I'm not sure if we're able to hear you.
Oh, no.
We have a ear problem too.
Bear with us for a moment here.
Can you hear me now? Oh,
IT is here.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, you know what? I need to share my sound. Okay, cool. Let me set my timer so that I for sure keep this quick. But my name is Wes Schaefer, and I've been working with Chelsea, the GCRA in the city now for about 2 years on this project. And if I may start off by apologizing for not being in person, my wife and I are still celebrating the birth of our first child. 3 weeks in, it's still a party. We party all night. You might see the bags under my eyes now as evidence of that, but it's been a very enriching time. But I wanted to put some time aside to address with you today, and I do appreciate your time. And I may also start off just by acknowledging how rewarding this experience has been to work with the GCRA, the city, and the community. Throughout the process, people have been very courteous, conscientious, and I think we've uncovered a lot of really interesting ideas and concepts, and the conversations that have ensued have been very educational for me, and hopefully what we're presenting here tonight reflects in as authentic way as possible what we're calling the building blocks that emerged from these conversations and the various studies we performed and so forth to produce this data. So without further ado, I presume you have a copy of this document, so I won't go through it in great detail. I'd like to just kind of skim through if I may, and I'll try again to share. And can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So this document, we're referring to it as building blocks, and you sort of see conceptually as an idea this pile of Legos in the middle of the screen here. And each of these Legos, each of these blocks represents a concept or an idea that emerged from our community engagement and research. And it's really the role of this plan to try and put these pieces together in a way that aligns with the community's goals, with their aspirations, and ultimately addresses the need for housing in Gainesville. Now, the two sites that we're working with, they're of two sites that can do something to address the housing crisis in Gainesville. But it certainly won't be a silver bullet solution to what is really a complex and persistent issue. But I think what we can do is demonstrate, if we build these blocks a certain way, maybe there's a model that can be replicated and done on other sites, or maybe there's a model that addresses more than just the housing crisis, but addresses other needs and aspirations of the community surrounding these sites. And so some of the ideas that came out of this project include economic equity, knowing your neighbors, respecting the needs and aspirations of people, collaborating with neighbors through this process, building wealth through home ownership and land ownership, recognizing the benefits of intergenerational family, the opportunity for families to live together, grow together, and so forth. So after sort of digging into the nitty gritty, looking at data, but also talking to folks, we couched this project with a design question. And the question kind of has evolved over time. The more we learn, the more this question has been tweaked and should continue to be tweaked as we move forward. But the question ultimately is, how might we develop city-owned property in desirable neighborhoods to provide cost relief for households earning less than 80% of Alachua County's median income, while also serving quality of life needs of the neighborhood's existing residents? And this question tries to recognize that first and foremost, these properties are really in desirable parts of our city. These are very walkable places. They're close to jobs, close to city amenities. And as such, they're expensive. They're expensive areas, expensive land. And so we want to utilize that land. To utilize that land to make affordable housing, we need to make decisions about, the number of units that we put on it and the types of units we put on it. In addition to these being desirable neighborhoods, they're neighborhoods that are experiencing change and pressure from development. And there's a legacy and a history in these neighborhoods that should be recognized and actually tells a story that's important to keep and maintain and preserve and build off of to build new stories. And so, this, in the face of what we might identify as gentrification, maybe there's a way to develop these sites so that we are building with that story in mind and building for that story. So the project included fairly proactive community engagement process. We had an online presence with a website. We sent out flyers and mailers to folks to let them know about meetings and such on the site. And then we also posted these signs on the site. And part of the goal was to really capture those, what we call day-to-day stakeholders, the folks that live with this site. They walk by it, or they drive by it, or, on Sundays when they're leaving church, this site actually means something or is part of their day-to-day life. And so doing things like adding these signs to the site was a way to just capture that wanderer who actually lives with this site. And so we met through a series of workshops, 4 in total, 2 for each site. We met on the site and we performed a community engagement meeting that involved a lot of different, what we called stations. And the reason we had different stations is because we wanted to ask different questions in different ways. And so, we had, for instance, the voice record station, which was an opportunity to have a more one-on-one intimate conversation about the site, its history, the neighborhood, and what we're ultimately looking for, what the community is looking for. There was also this bonfire, which was more of a, collaborative community conversation that involved a lot of people sort of speaking together. And then there was the design studio, which was a way just to put pencil and paper together and scale the site to talk about what really are the physical constraints that we're dealing with the site. And just some examples, some scenes from those moments. These were very fun engagements, but they were also there were some challenging conversations that happened at these, and I think that was really important. I'm happy to go in more detail on any of that. After that workshop and after bringing some of those big ideas together to kind of draw out an idea for what could be on this site, we reconvened with the community later on and had sort of a second round of workshops to really understand, does this align with what you were saying at the first round of workshops? Do we see that there is overlap in what you told us and what we're demonstrating through this design? And I won't go through each of these, but these were some of the main building blocks for each site. So for Pleasant Street, heritage and history was a theme. Incubation, the opportunity to build new businesses and support small businesses with a theme. the idea of resourcefulness, using this city-owned property in the most efficient and effective way possible, because it is the public, it's basically owned by the public and it's public money that is supporting this redevelopment. The idea that this space should support community and actually be a place where people of all ages can interact. And then this idea that like it's a natural space. There's beautiful tree canopy on this site. Let's preserve that to the greatest extent possible. And similarly, but different with respect to Porter's Quarters, there was emphasis on intergenerational family, the idea that your home or the land you own could be part of a bigger story about ownership and wealth building. And then the idea that knowing your neighbor is a really powerful quality of life asset. The fact that these sites need to represent some sort of an authentic design that's distinct to Porter's. And again, this sort of play in natural space emerged theme about, the legacy of this place is actually originally being a place where people played, and celebrating the fact that it does add that little nature oasis element to the neighborhood.
Wes.
Yeah.
Really quick, I also want to add, I see you're so sorry. I thought you were done, but I also have printed off copies of our public engagement plan. We presented this to this advisory board in May. And then I have some copies at the back for the public. And then I have actually printed off all the comment cards and written notes from
Nice.
both neighborhoods. So I'll pass that around now. And then we also have some at the back for the public to take a look at.
Awesome, Chelsea. And yeah, thank you for that. That's fantastic. Yes. Okay. Two points I want to make before kind of diving into the design, and I'm looking at my clock, so I'm going to start kind of accelerating a little bit. But when we came back around for the second round of community engagement, this was after we figured out sort of the themes of what we heard, and we started putting those themes together in a physical design. We kind of heard these two ideas. So from the Pleasant Street side, there was this, from what we gathered from the community, there's sort of this tension on how to balance this site. There were strong, from the community, there were strong opinions and thoughts about how this site really needs to be for housing. It needs to be a statement for affordable housing. Let's try to put as much housing on it as we can. The problem is so big, we need to, to do the most we can to address the housing problem. So that was one sort of tension. The other was that, well, we really want this to have community activity. Pleasant Street historically was a very active, engaging place, and it remains so in the sense that there are businesses on that street. There are people who are walking up and down that street on a regular basis. Is there something that can accentuate that community activity? And then this idea of natural space, the tree canopy in Pleasant Street is such that it really does make it pleasant, so to speak. And we heard stories about how people like to bring their dog to the space, or just listen to the birds chirping and watch sort of, squirrels run around. And so finding a balance between these three big ideas was really the challenge that we sort of heard from the Pleasant Street side. And then on the Porter's Quarter side, less interest in specifically the design that was presented for Porter's Quarters, and more in how the community would participate in its development, and more how the community would have actually a role in the decisions and such to bring this property into redevelopment. And so there was this idea that there's a tension that was sort of pulling toward a community-led idea for the Porter's Quarters site. So I'll real quick just kind of peruse through the concepts that we came up with. So Pleasant Street, we're dubbing it the Pleasant Street Collective. It involves four major areas. Rose Park, which is named after Rose Theater, the theater that used to be on this site. Rose Park is the corner where we try to preserve two of the big trees that are on the site and allow for this natural open space. And then framing park is what we're calling Pleasant Street Hall. It's essentially a flexible micro incubator, a space that folks can start their business and even grow their business. And it allows for up to 3 businesses to occupy the space. And the sort of the interface between the two is nice because they can sort of be a front door for each other. And so there's a lot of interplay between and the commercial space. And then towards the rear is the residential intimate area, where we try to incorporate a range of housing types, housing sizes, and allow for a little bit of private open space. And this is just another view. Here are the community again, and we tried to reflect those community themes in the design of this project. So it's each of the people you see in this have a story to tell. I was joking with Chelsea that as I was sort of putting this together, I was coming up with sort of these little ideas about why these people are here. And I think that's ultimately what makes a good place are the stories that come together in space, and how that space can actually help build new stories and new opportunities for placemaking and quality of life. But this is a view looking into the site. You have that commercial building, which is a flex space framing the park, the residential in the rear. We would incorporate a monument along what is the Heritage Trail on Pleasant Street. And so extending the curb to allow this sort of seating area with the monument. And then again, these garage doors represent the space as you open up the commercial space and look out over the park. It creates this interplay between the two. And then towards the rear, housing that accommodates a range of household types, including young families, elderly, and single occupant units as well. And trying to create an intimate space that also celebrates these commonalities, these common space attributes. And then towards the rear, we would introduce an alleyway that would have garages and apartments above. In the Porter's Quarters, dubbing this space Grandma's Park, it's a celebration of Porter's past and social cohesion of that past, and how play and the fact that actually grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles were all part of this broader idea of community, and that this space was actually dubbed Grandma's Park because a neighbor whose grandma would use this space when they would come visit their grandma. So this space has sort of 4 big ideas. There's a small commercial space with another house, what we're calling a flexplex. It allows for the house to either be a single family or a single family with an accessory dwelling. It just depends on how you configure it. A park, and then another flexplex. Again, it could be a single family or it could be up to 3 units. Just another look at it from the top view. We have 5th Ave to the north, and then 4th Street. We have our 2-unit flexplex, the community. We've got the play area, and then a 3-unit flexplex. The commercial space is a bit of a funky idea, but it's a flexible idea about it's a flexible form that can accommodate a range of uses, including a small grocery store, a small retail space, coffee shop, and that these windows and doors allow for it to sort of take different form depending on how it's used and how the community demands its use. Just another look at the arc in between the flexplex and the space. These back-end parking spaces can be used to host like a food truck or a grill or a smoker, or they could be used for parking, but it's intended to be as flexible as possible. This shared driveway is also a path through to the park, and we're trying to preserve some of the existing tree canopy on the site. And then a key element to Grandma's Park is the fact that grandmas and grandpas and aunts and uncles can caregive and overlook a play space that accommodates for children. And the idea here is that throughout the seasons, whether it's nighttime, weekend time, this space can flex and form and take on different characteristics to celebrate just the unique character of Porter's. The triplex, it's up to 3 units, garages in the rear to sort of pull those cars off the front street and pull them to the back of the site. And everything is designed with accessibility in mind. We want to make sure that folks have access to the ground floor, regardless of their accessibility needs. And then finally, just to wrap this up, we're proposing some steps that can take to move forward. And ultimately, we're positing this idea of undergoing what's called a community public-private partnership. You're likely familiar with public-private partnerships as an idea. The city does them all the time. The community element stresses that there would be, either through an advisory group or through another entity, that there would be a community voice at the table to pursue redevelopment of these sites. And so we envision that, for instance, a community land trust might be part of this partnership. A community investment trust might be part of this relationship. An affordable housing developer, a community advisory group, the city, of course, would be part of this partnership. And we sort of posit upwards of 7 steps that the city could take to pursue this community partnership, and ultimately to see that this project gets built. And that is, in conclusion, my little review or overview.
That's great. Chelsea?
Thank you, Wes. So we were hoping we could use the rest of the time for the advisory board to talk and also to hear from the public. We sent postcards to all the residents in both the Porters and Pleasant Street communities, and invited them to come out and use this advisory board as kind of a final form of engagement. So they can kind of give you your thoughts, and then you can either give a recommendation to the city commission. In your recommendation, you can put any changes you might want in the plan. So we really just want to turn control over to the advisory board, also to the public now. Thank you.
Great. Are we ready to start? I mean, I figure maybe we could have a little bit of discussion, ask some questions, and then we'll open it up to the public, and then continue to move forward with it and then make our recommendation from that. Does that sound like that works? All right. Do we have any anybody want to start us off?
Mr. Chair, I would like to hear from the neighbors from these communities.
Okay.
Get a feel for what and what they're envisioning. And then we should follow their lead, I think. That's how I feel about it.
Okay.
People who feel it.
All right. Anybody else want to comment on that?
A few tangible questions. I wasn't sure if I heard correctly, but are these rentals or sales, or has that been determined? And if so, do we have any pricing on it? And also, I don't know how far along you are in terms of who's your designated contractor or builder for this project? And what are some of the design features, bedrooms, bath, square footage, etc.?
Wes, I'll let you answer.
Absolutely. So I heard, what's the ownership? Who's kind of at the table to even build this contractor wise? What are some of the design features in terms of sizes and things like that? And did I miss one?
That's pretty much it.
Okay. So to start off, I think the top aspiration is for this to be for sale. Now, so part of what is in that next steps that I kind of perused through, the idea of this community partnership, the community partnership is going to be very important in determining a lot of these aspects, including the ownership model and the contractor. We envision that, for instance, if we were to pursue and sort of lay out the cards for pursuing a community land trust, in which the community land trust, an entity, a nonprofit entity, would own the land, and then people could purchase the housing on the land. And in that case, everything would be owned, but the land would be owned by a nonprofit and the housing would be owned by individuals. There's also this idea of a community investment trust, which would be more of a neighborhood oriented. If you're familiar with real estate investment trusts, or sort of like you might hear about them in the news, they're kind of like a Wall Street oriented thing. This is a community version of that, which would be directed by the neighborhood. The community investment trust could have ownership interests in some of these lands. It's not to say that it couldn't be used for rental, but the idea is to sort of give as much ownership, as broad opportunity for ownership access as possible. It may be the case that some of the people who purchase aspects of this might rent out other pieces. For instance, in Porter's Quarters, we proposed what's called a flexplex. And the idea is that, as a family, you might buy this house, but to support your purchase, to support your affordability of that, you might rent out part of the space that you're not using at that time, like an accessory dwelling, for instance, to help generate income, revenue to offset your mortgage costs and so forth. And so there's aspects that we can leverage based on the design and the community ownership model that help people land where they want to land in terms of their ownership and what they can afford. Now, we are targeting 80 folks who sort of fall in the 80% or lower of the income, the median income in Alachua County. And so to answer your question about prices and costs, that is a target, but we don't have strong, we have sort of back of napkin ideas for what the project might cost. The problem with what we did even 2, 3, 4 months ago in terms of back of napkin costs, with materials and inflation, it's been hard to sort of land on a solid number. And so we're not presenting a solid number at the moment. But that, again, that's where the partnership comes in. The partnership would actually solicit for a contractor. We're recommending that you find a local contractor, someone who's familiar with the area, maybe even has ties to the community, and can participate, have more of that intimate connection to the community. But the partnership, like I said, which would include the city, but also maybe a community land trust, maybe this idea of a community advisory group, the partnership really would make the decision about who contracts, and part of that solicitation for finding that contractor will be about setting prices and trying to sort of set a ceiling what the project cost would be. And again, we want to tie that cost back to the idea that households that earn 80% of the Alachua County income would have access to these sites.
Thank you.
Member Blunt.
I have questions about that 80% AMI right here in our materials. We have lower income renters account for the vast majority of households experiencing housing cost burden. So that should be 50% AMI. As a target.
Yeah, it should be.
Right. Yeah. And I think that I want to say the AMI right now is about for a household is about 87,000. And so that number where we say lower income renters account for the vast majority of households experiencing housing cost burden, we're using census data to come up with that number. And we're basically what's included in that group is our households making under 75,000. So in 20, so folks, there's a graph I could show, but I won't show that because
I have it right here.
Oh, you have it? Okay.
It is based obviously on family size. So that's something that the advisory board can definitely talk about if you want to move from that 80% to 50%. So low income to very low income.
So,
right.
Yeah, sorry, hold on. Let me back up a little bit. Can we maybe, I didn't see a formal recommendation like we sometimes have. So I kind of wanted to work through what exactly the scope of what we might be looking for, or what you might be looking for from us this evening is. It sounds like there are a couple things on the table that might create a very good way for the community to be able to say, no, this is what we want. Community can manage it. The community might be able to dictate exactly what an appropriate AMI is, rather than us, discussing that today, or really getting into what that is. But is that what am I understanding that correctly? We're looking at maybe trying to decide, is a community organization being involved in this something we should discuss to help move the project forward right now?
So today, the recommendation on this is just to make a recommendation to the city commission to approve the plan. In your motion, you can include recommended changes that you would recommend that is changed about the plan. And yeah, you're right. The plan was purposely left open so that there could be more choice in that community partnership in the future once the plan's implemented. So that is something to consider too. Maybe income may not be something specific that we want to look at until we exactly know the cost of building and what we can even feasibly do.
Okay. Yes, Member Fox.
With the AMI. You said it was like 80, and Member Blunt is recommended that we go 50% of their annual income.
Yes, ma'am, and I'll pass this around so you guys.
The thing is, the minimum wage that the city has initiated is $15 an hour. That's not even 32,000. It's about 30. I know we had figured it before. So that would cut out a whole bunch of people that would love to have a home, but they don't make $15 an hour. That's not very much at all. They can't, none of those people would be able to afford it. If you make $15 an hour, 40 hours a week, then you have to take out taxes and insurance. So the bring home pay is going to be less than what the 15. I think I was at one of the community visiting sessions when we talked about this. It's just a lot out of range for if you're not making, everybody doesn't make 60 or 60,000 or more dollars a year. Am I correct? In our community, there aren't too many people. They have the $15 an hour, and it just went to $15 an hour. So we're cutting all of these people out of possibly getting a home. And that's been my concern then, and it is my concern now. We cannot, it will be the same people buying the houses, people who don't live in the community are not a part of Porters or possibly Pleasant Street. So we need to address that with the commissioners, and I don't think we need to send out a plan until we could hear from the neighbors and see how they feel about it. So these people are making up $70,000 and $80,000 who make $15 an hour. Okay. And then the other question I had was, you talked about the person would own the home, but not the city would own the land, but not the land. Do we have any other projects in town where I'm building a house on city property? The house is mine.
I believe Porter's Quarters is that same situation.
Porter's Oaks is,
Or Porter's Oaks.
but it's not, it's theirs. They're now considered townhomes. And so the owner owns it, but I am going to talk right after you finish.
Okay, all right. Those are just questions that, okay, that's all I need to say, but I don't think we need to make any recommendations until we hear from people. And then we work on the income.
Okay. We'll definitely put a pin in that. Member Norquist? Or
Would Ms. Fox
Like an answer to the question she asked, or
is that about
Well, it's quite,
the city?
okay, I see some of the ones you said,
So the city's currently has a partnership with Bright Community Land Trust, and we are working with them to get 5 lots to create community land trust. So it's relatively new.
And if I may say, I think you raise a very important point. I think one of the building blocks of this design is that we may have to consider that these developments provide a range of housing types, that certainly that we target up to 80%, but that's not only who has access to this. That perhaps we could do something like, for instance, a cross subsidy where some of the units are sold to folks earning 80% of the median income, and that sale helps create a margin that offsets the cost of another unit that might target someone earning 40%. But that, the project remain as flexible as possible to sort of broaden the horizon on who has access to this. And I do commend anyone who wants to create it, even move the 80% to 50% as a rule. I mean, that I think it's a challenge, but perhaps it's a challenge worth pursuing.
Thank you.
Member Norquist?
Yeah, I had a question just related to the conceptual plan that you've developed. Have you brought that back to each one of these communities and gotten some input related to it and finalizing the design, or is this the first time that it's being presented to the community?
So the designs were initially circulated sort of, we'll say, informally, in terms of Chelsea participated in a few neighborhood meetings, and they were also available on the website. And then I think it was October, November timeframe, we went back to the community and actually had a design-oriented meeting to talk through not only the designs, but these ideas of community ownership, community land trust, community investment trusts. We talked about, the big themes of what we heard originally. And just to remind, I would characterize the Porter's Quarters conversation. So we presented our designs and the ownership models. The Porter's Quarters were less, if I may say, they seemed less interested in the design itself and more interested in the ownership models and understanding how those mechanics work, and how might we pursue an ownership model that really has that community voice, that community input, and ultimately decision making. Now, on the Pleasant Street side, it was a much more robust conversation about the design itself. And there were some sensitivities. For instance, not everyone was a fan of the fact that we would reopen an alleyway that would help allow for cars to park and access the site without interrupting sort of the Pleasant Street sidewalk and so forth. There was a lot of conversation about the size of the units. Folks tended to think the size of the unit sizes we're proposing are maybe too small. I think the largest unit we're proposing in the Pleasant Street is 1,500 square feet. But then it tracks down to, I think the smallest is about 400 square feet. So there was a lot of conversation about that. But and so it was a little more oriented around design, where in the Pleasant Street, whereas in the Porters it was much more oriented around the ownership.
Great. Member Brown, and then we'll thank you for bearing with us. We'll move to public questions just after Member Brown.
The reason that I mentioned the pricing in particular, for purposes of the income brackets and ownership, when you guys are going through these projects, are you giving people information regarding the actual cost of construction and the likelihood of what the city's going to have to contribute to make that affordable? Because construction costs in and of themselves are going to be what they are. Materials cost what they cost. You're not going to get around that part of it. And the contractor is going to have to be compensated for his time and his effort. So those you're going to have in already. Is any of that, is the public being made aware, informed, or educated about that process in and of itself, again, so that they can be made fully aware of what the city's going to have to contribute in order to make that meet the 50% MFI?
I think the short and quick answer to that is no. That's not been discussed. And frankly, it's not even something that we necessarily have finalized or have a full grasp of. It in some ways exceeded the scope of this particular particular increment of work. But certainly as part of the next steps, some of those forecasting questions are really the next steps. And we think that the community partnership is going to be the key to answering some of those questions, because we could throw numbers out, but first the numbers are pretty high. But like figuring out how those numbers can work for the end user is really going to be, I think, the main task or challenge of the partnership. Chelsea, did you have other thoughts on that?
No, I think you answered it well.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, or that's maybe?
Yes,
you have-
thank you. for
Okay.
asking.
Is it my understanding that the designs that you showed us today is what you're presenting to the neighbors for approval? Am I correct to believe that? Designs that you show, you haven't had, just tell me what, you're presenting these plans to Porter and Pleasant Street? Who came up with the design and the plans? And I saw a while ago, a lot of people say there wasn't any input from the people who've been living there all these years. So I have a serious problem with contractors or anyone that works for the city going into a neighborhood and coming up with designs and plans without having input from the neighbor. I think, we just went through a whole bunch of that with
Ms. Fox, I just want to kind of address that. So we did these are the same plans we presented in November to both the Porters and Pleasant Street community. And we recently went through a public comment period, about a 3-week public comment period, where they could have provided additional comments after that. And so then, all the designs, we first went to the community without designs about a year ago. And all the information we got from those is what was implemented. So we didn't just show designs, we created designs off of engagement, and then we showed the designs to the community, and then we're showing them again to the community today.
that's all I wanted. Thank you.
Member Norquist?
Yeah, there's a final question related to the actual recommendation. So approve the plan. What is the definition of the plan? Is it these 2 conceptual plans that you've come up with, or what is it that we're actually?
It's the document, the draft building blocks document that's in the back.
Okay. Do you have another copy of the draft, that document? I don't have that one.
I'm sorry, I was told you guys had computers, so I didn't.
Yeah, I forgot mine. Sorry. Thank you. This is the one with the recommendation in the last page. Well, I think it seems like we've been sort of satisfied in our questions. I'd like to move to public comments and have a little discussion there. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. We'll move to this. If you would, we'd like to keep it to 3 minutes per person. So
No, we don't have work 3 minutes, so we have to take some time. We need some time, so maybe.
well, I believe that's the point, the engagement. We're going to keep it to 3 minutes for public comment for this, please. And, we'll hear things, but, I know we saw a lot of you last night at that meeting. I'm sure or Thursday night, I'm sure they heard a lot there too.
It doesn't have anything to do with this, so. We're gonna speak from our heart.
I appreciate that, but for the sake of this, I'd like to keep it to 3 minutes per person. There are a lot of people who want to speak.
Who wants to speak first? I'd like to, we need to go to the podium. I need to go to the podium? Yeah. Just like that. So the people in the Zoom can see you.
I don't. But interested in it.
Here, so.
Yeah, a better way so everyone can hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the next people.
I'm ridiculous.
Queuing up. We can-
Okay, and I had the privilege of being at the last meeting at Cade Museum. And at that moment, I have several things that I have made note of. We did have an emphasis on having a voice in what would be the construction of the site. And so we see that you did make an effort, but you did leave out a couple of things. We do have a community empowerment corps. And we talked with the city gates that night and said, we love the fact that you were talking about a land trust, but we like grant, the word grant a whole lot better. And we were told that we would be considered for finances to actually empower us to help our partner in the development of the project for the Porters. Now, today, if you were to, my concern is if today you approve this site plan, then we're locked in. So I would ask that until we are at a level of agreement where we are all comfortable that you're not approved this today. That's number one. And then we do want to be a voice participating in especially the commercial part for the Porters community. You did not include the fact that we said not only a grocer, which was your idea, or some other retail space. We said, bring back the mom and pop cultural expression, not only for those who are coming into the community for a visual, but for those of us who live there, so that we would have a store inside of our community. It would also keep the funds, our dollars inside of our community. And that would be a pipeline of empowerment for us, because right now we are being drained financially because the majority of us who are owners are few. All those who rented for years and years, when the owners sold the property to the developers, they were without a place to live. So that is why we're asking you, even as you're thinking about creating this space in the way you are, which is beautiful, but that maybe you would consider a lease with an option to buy for those who have lower incomes and are unable to, but some kind of a way we strategize that when they actually pay their rent, they pay a portion to a kitty or something that we could, at some point, they would own it.
Right.
The other thing was, the gentleman that's presenting, he has still not given us any kind of numbers for the cost. We're not afraid of the numbers. We know they're not, positive or, factual at this point, but we would still like to know what in the world is the ballpark, cost that you're talking about. And then the last thing I wanted to say, I think I want to say thank you. Thank you.
Go next.
Thank you, Ms. Gus.
Give me a hug before you start. No, you're gonna give me a hug. You don't remember me, do you?
Good evening.
Your name.
I'm Avis Butler. And I spoke at the city commission meeting the other day. But in reviewing your plan, I'd like to ask that you all take a few minutes to, not even just a few minutes, if we can have some additional workshops before any approval is made. In addition to what Ms. Fox has indicated that were of concerns, Porter's Oaks. And I ask you, let's just go back and revisit that. Porter's Oaks, which was started in terms of development back in 1988. We had the best partnership with the city. We cannot even begin to say thank you enough to the city of Gainesville for what they did for Porter's Oaks. In addition to them purchasing the land, but they worked with us basically for 2.5 years prior to the start of the development of Porter's Oaks. Because what did we put in place? We made sure that the entire community was involved, had whatever say-so they needed to say. We made sure that we would have affordable housing units for our people, those that were indigenous to that community, as well as those outside of the community, but were very much interested. We wanted to keep the character of the community. And I'll just put it out there, the character of the community. Predominantly a Black community. And it worked. It took us about a year just to meet with prospective homeowners, some of them from the Porter's neighborhood, some of them from some of the other adjoining neighborhoods. But what I say to you is, I'm looking at first your financing here. We did almost the same thing, not only with the city contributing. We had the Florida Housing Finance Corporation, they were the Florida Housing Finance Agency at that time. We were able to raise additional funds to help with the down payment of that, so that we could have that group of people with income less than the 80% that you're speaking of afford a home. When I looked at the records, and I actually did that this week, I looked at the records of the 32 units that we built under phase 1, 18 of them are still homeowners. 14 of them are not the original homeowners. Of the 36 units of phase 2 that were built, 22 of them are still homeowners, and 14 of them are the original homeowners. And so I say to you, we need, United Gainesville was involved. United Gainesville existed for 21 years, but this is 33 years later. And I ask each one of you to drive over there and look at Porter's Oak subdivision. After United Gainesville dissolved, then there was no other communications or group involved to continue so that that particular development would look like it did when we developed it. It absolutely doesn't. And we're trying to figure out right now what it is we need to do to bring the entire community back together, which includes Porter's Oaks, because even with the homeowners, they are contributing their taxes. But as I look at this and the partnership, and even with an organization who might be over it, what happens when that organization dissolves, as United Gainesville did? So then who gets to keep the eye on them? Who gets to help them maintain their homes? Because out of the 14 from each group that left for whatever reason, whether it was foreclosure or whatever, there could have been some assistance to keep them there. I also found out, and this is just basically what I heard, I have not researched it, but there was pretty much a prohibition or a restriction from the City of Gainesville housing funds that if it was a multi-unit complex, even though home ownership, the homeowners could not really actually exercise or apply for any of the rehabilitation money because of the nature of the structure of the unit. So again, I want to visit with the city and see if that's the case. But this would be the same issue. This is a multi-complex, even though we're looking for homeowners. We don't want to have that same problem. And I just say to you, it was, we all celebrated for years with Porter's Oaks. I mean, it was wonderful. But again, when you have the multi-units, and now we have so many of our homeowners who can't even get their units insured. Why? Because there's a roofing issue. And so when you have multi-unit complex, you have the roofing issue. So
And to touch base on that too, since I live there, just to echo some of this, if you would, or echo this, almost every electrical panel that is in every house in Porter's Oaks now needs to be updated to be insurable. I literally just went through this, but if you would real quick, I mean, I did let you go, not just let you, but would you please kind of reintroduce yourself and kind of mention what your history is? That's kind of why, you know, I wanted you to continue to speak, because I know you have a lot of.
Again, I'm Avis Butler. I was the executive director of United Gainesville Community Development Corporation from 1985 to 1989. When we started, we were administratively funded by the state of Florida through their Community Development Corporation program. When we started, we were the last agency on the list, number 16. When I left, we were number 1 in the state. And we got national and state acclaim for Porter's Oaks. I mean, just when I say national acclaim, I mean just everywhere, because we were able to put people with the lower incomes into home ownership and not have it be called a project, or even in terms of the project as we think of, like Kennedy Homes and the lower income projects. It was just wonderful. But again, when we're looking at an agency, and there's nothing to say, yes, we love the fact I was very much instrumental in getting the NHDC at the city of Gainesville back in the day. And maybe that's an agency that will exist from here on out, because we don't think the city of Gainesville is going anywhere. So we need to make sure that whatever agency is over this, and by the way, Porter's Oaks they do have a homeowners association. We created that in 1988. It went inactive for a period of time. I'm not sure what years, but it was reactivated, I believe, back in 2014. It is still active. But again, now that home HOAs are pretty popular now, and we have Florida statutes that govern them in terms of what we can do to make sure that homeowners can, you know, have to do their part to make sure that things are good. We just got to make this work. And as I see it, even though it looks beautiful here, but we want to make sure we can maintain our neighborhoods. My in-laws live in the Fifth Avenue, the Pleasant Street district area. I lived there for a while, you know, when I came back in the 80s and moved back and got married. I almost don't know Fifth Avenue. Almost don't know. So you see, I'm just saying, it's important to us, to the people of color, that we keep our neighborhoods to an extent that we can have the beautification for the neighborhoods. We can have more home ownership, because when we did have the home ownership back in the day, in our historical days, it existed and we did well. So we want that. But I ask that you hold off on voting and making a final decision. So until we can determine what agency would best be able to handle both the Fifth Avenue, the Pleasant Street Historic District, or whatever it's called now, and our Porter's Quarters area, we absolutely got to have that. Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity.
Mike, can move on to the next person. Anybody would like to come up? I would ask for another 3 minutes. We do, just to kind of keep the 3 minutes. We do have some concerns for time for people. Thank you very much.
Hey, I'm Sarah Piana. I am Flacco. And I've been following some of the things going on with the community. And I guess I'm listening, and I want to put some ideas out there, because I have employees that make 15 an hour, 20 an hour, and are in those lower budgets and that need to buy a home. They're all going to the SHIP program this year to get their 15,000. And I really think that this project could be used as like a trampoline into making more homeowners, especially in these neighborhoods that are so like people want to live in, right? Especially people of color, like she was just expressing, they want to keep their neighborhood and they want to bring back the funds that were in those neighborhoods. And I think these two lots can do both of those things. The housing that's been put in the plan, I know there's like a lot of stuff against Airbnbs and short-term rentals, but if part of it was used for that. Those types of rentals make way more money than long-term, and they're able to be maintained properly. And so you could subsidize a long-term rental. For example, I lived there for 2 years. I pay rent, but it goes to a trust. That rent in 2 years, I get $24,000 towards buying a house. And this is just a trampoline where more every 2 years, somebody gets to buy a house. It's not like, and then the Airbnb next to it also helps pay for the cost of the house, right? Do you hear what I'm saying?
Right.
So like Airbnb is helping pay for the cost. I'm putting away money towards a down payment, plus my $15,000 for my ships. I've got like $40,000 towards a new home. And this keeps happening. And who gets first bids at living in these 2-year plan houses that gives you a home? Probably folks who've been taken out of their home, like the Seminary Lane folks that we haven't addressed that in years. So I think it's having good ideas that are gonna help our community. I mean, the commercial space, commissary kitchens. I mean, we need local food. It's so hard to start a restaurant with the wages that we have. Like, it's very difficult. You have to have like inherited money or somehow to start a restaurant. I mean, you need $20,000 just to put in a kitchen. So if we have a commissary kitchen in these places, we could have markets, like people could, the green space could be used as a market. And then that is community funding money back into their community. And we rent out that commissary kitchen. Like, these are ideas that can go with this plan. I think we shouldn't approve it because these are things that can really affect the community. And if it's approved right now without having more of the details that everyone's saying need to be addressed, then thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Oh, I am Flacco's and Abuela's casinos.
You're one of my favorite places.
Okay.
All of those.
I'm scared.
I'm Donald Shepherd, People's Representative of the City of Gainesville and communities. Forest neighborhood, I was a boy when I first visited. And the Cotton Club was the main staple of this area. There's history there that has been wiped out. Is this what this project's gonna do? Wipe out our history of this area? We talk about back, historical area, but from what I've seen over the years, and I'm gonna say last 5 years, it's been, use the word, rape off and under them, ripped right off the rugs off and under them from having dignity and respect for their own area. When they asked for things to be repaired, did they get repaired? No. Did anybody help them? This level of income is ridiculous. Go find out what the level of income is, so that these people in your letter of intent of what you're presenting here today, that should have been in your first step. Is going to these people and finding out what their level of income. You take it, send out all these tax people to find out information about taxes. What about these people going out and finding out what these people need? If I was mayor, I had a plan through the railroad money of CSX and Amtrak coalition, that Mayor Ward has taken, brought to the face of us people. But what's his intent? We haven't heard that. And we want to take and state that we need an outlook before we move into this. Because here's another person who has been fighting for this, along with the people that are in this back row, these 2 rows here in the back, that need to be on camera, so that the people that are watching this can take and see where the true representation of our city is. These people have come to city commission meetings. Carlos Blunt has been one of the biggest representatives of this area. Mrs. Fox has been representative of this area. These people are the people that have made Gainesville what it is. But where's their pat on the back or notation? That I'm not hearing. And I'm at the meetings for 14 years. And I'm not hearing this stuff you guys, you ladies have brought to this microphone was ear stinging to me because I couldn't believe that could happen in our city. So that's all I have. Oh, I have one more thing. That is, what I was gonna do when I was the mayor is I have a contractor and I have a plastic plant operator who is gonna make this reality. They talk about building blocks, but what is it in reality like? I have a contractor and a manufacturer who is gonna settle our waste things and also settle the contracting funds, which taken ascertain to the true estimate of income. It's 50,000, that's way over. Who you know earns $50,000 in that area? I'd like to know. They must be rich people because I get 12,000 a month and then I can barely make it. And I have to ride a bicycle to and from the city hall for 14 years. So these people need to be answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It sounds to me like, well, after we hear the people that we probably need to not move forward with the recommendation tonight. Let us hear the other people. But I think we need to move forward with not any recommendations until we can go back and answer some of the questions and get input from the neighbors and the people that are represented here tonight.
Okay, would anybody mind if I take a temperature of where we are at the board around that suggestion? Member Brown,
Mrs. Fox.
member Blunt? Your Norquist?
Based on the members that have spoken so far, I would agree. If there's any other sentiment out there.
Yeah, I also tend to agree. I think I hear that there is some more stuff that we'd like to talk about. I want to see if maybe we could, if we are making a recommendation, maybe make a recommendation or not make a recommendation to pursue this or make a recommendation that says the community wants more engagement around this. I took some notes. There were a couple different things that sounded like we could try and offer as a suggestion to come back to us with, so that we might make a further potential approval on something like this. The things that I saw suggested were AMI to 50%, finding out whether or not that type of thing is viable. Sounds like there is more, their community would like more input just on the design, a little bit more to what we're doing there. Within that, I've heard it a couple times, a focus on how do we go to ownership and what does that look like for people. I personally am really interested in the idea of researching something like that commissary kitchen. If something like that can be viable in a commercial space, I've heard that come up consistently through entrepreneurship organizations and things like that. What can we do to create a commissary kitchen there with that as a plan? So
One other thing.
yes.
Ms. Mavis mentioned the company that you work for. What was it back there in the 80s, Ms. Mavis?
United Gainesville.
Maybe we need to look into something like that and
Yeah,
see
if we
how
can-
viable that would be in helping. If it worked back then, I'm sure it works now.
Yeah. So,
But I'm after she's ready, I am ready to make a motion that we not move forth with this recommendation tonight until we could look at some other things that was brought before us tonight.
Okay, I believe for me, the motion I would want to support would be an ask them to come back to us with, ask staff to come back to us with a little bit more like concrete, hey, here's what we really want to see about this so that they can build a better recommendation and we all can kind of get more behind it. Because it really sounds like the community's not ready there.
No, it's not ready. So I will amend my motion to that.
Okay.
Well, would they have the people from Pleasant Street speak before you, anything else? They haven't really spoke there.
Well, I was thinking there would be another public comment kind of at the end of this, but you know, gauging by the temperature of this, I think a lot of us are of the same mind.
Yeah, and
They took their time to come out, so if they're gonna speak, seem like that would be.
We will let them, please, we will let them speak. It's not about that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, the other thing that I heard was something about the actual land ownership, that there was some question related to ownership of the land and that this development could fall into disrepair as a result of the ownership being dissolved. So I'll make sure that question gets addressed. That sounded extremely important. And the other thing that, again, if there's somebody else from Pleasant Street or from some other organization, I would certainly want to hear any additional input so that our motion can reflect these additional things. Or if there's somebody else that would like to speak.
Okay, yeah, the only reason I'm pushing is I know we do have a time concern from one of our members, and I would rather us come back and say, you know, here is a recommendation rather than.
We won't have a quorum, in other words.
Right. So it would only be an ask. So.
Excuse me. Well, I wanted to make sure that what they were gonna ultimately finalize was approved by the community before it even comes back to us.
Mhm.
Is that what we're saying or not?
I believe that is something that, so if we're discussing some of this, that's a recommendation we can make to say, hey, if we're not ready to approve this as a board, but if you come back with more community support, you know, and then some of those things outlined, I think we can be able to have something that more people in the community can look at and have had eyes on and make a decision around.
So Member Palmer, I just want to, just making sure I understand. So you're pretty much what I'm hearing is this plan is too broad, too general, and needs to be more specific. So there, at that point, there are we made it broad and general for a reason so that we could funnel down into some of those specifics. Like what is that commercial space going to be for? What is that? But it's sounding you're wanting a plan that says exactly what that commercial space is going to be for, exactly the size of the units, exactly. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're making this decision that it can be difficult sometimes to implement. Sometimes things are left general so that we can kind of make those specific decisions through specific community engagement. So if you pass the plan today, it's going to go to the city commission for final approval. But after that, specifics like what the community space can be used for can go back out to the community. And so that was kind of the plan of the next step. So if you want to make this plan very specific and outline specifically at this point, that's fine. But I do kind of want to explain the general original intention of the plan and what it was trying to accomplish.
Okay.
So
Yeah, I understand that. I think from what I'm hearing, it sounds like, you know, having a little bit more specificity in the plan, having come back through the community, would be able to be something that we can get on, we all can get on board with.
Okay.
So
Member Fox?
are you saying, Chelsea, that you want us to approve this and send it to the city commission? That's why you have it so broad, and then we come back and revise things or add things?
Yes, this isn't exactly what I want or what I don't want. It's more what, more, I guess at this point, I don't want to specifically as a staff member make that recommendation. I'm just saying what the intention of the plan was trying to do. And the intention of the plan was not to be specific, but to leave a broad category of options. So those options could be pursued, and specific feasibility analysis could be made on how feasible is that use. So that, but at the same time, if we want to extend that process now and get it over with in this plan, that's also an option. But I just wanted to explain the purpose of the document to begin with. And if that's not what the board wants, if the board wants something specific, we can go back to the drawing board as well. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, this is the one.
Well, from my perspective, the community has spoken.
Mhm.
Yes.
And it's their community. So if they want specifics, it should be our goal to give them specifics. Thank you.
What I think it sounded to me there may not be some objection related to the concept, that's all. It's still going to be a concept that's going to be worked on by the community. But it sounds like there are certain unanswered questions that on the front end would be helpful in approving the conceptual plan. I think that's what I heard. I don't think there was an objection to the conceptual plans and maybe not having all the nuts and bolts tied down, but making sure that the process is in place and that there's some assurance moving forward for the community. That's what I heard based on the input that I got.
If I may interject, I think I heard the same, and I appreciate you raising that. If I may lend my voice to say, I think it would be very beneficial for folks to sit with this plan, have a chance to actually, make sure that you read through it, and those questions you just referenced are going to be the key to helping guide the next steps. Really having almost like an inventory of questions, so to speak, I think helps us scope what that next piece of work is, or when that next move. And so even if it's as simple as writing on this document and asking a question, well, what square footage is this, or who will own this, or because it's like Chelsea's saying, we wanted to, especially in the next steps section of this document, we were sort of, for lack of better words, pushing some of those decisions and some of those questions onto the community-based partnership and saying, hey, here's a concept that was derived from community engagement. This is conceptual. It's not intended to say that, this building will be here. So much as it was saying, hey, there are these big ideas people had about intergenerational wealth building and about heritage and about natural, like, play space. Here's how we might assemble that, but it's really going to be on top. The community-based partnership is going to be the one who kind of shepherds that and validates that and moves that forward. So my suggestion is, I think we thrive, or we benefit from the questions being really specific, or just having that list of questions to respond to.
I got a question, and I just know, I was gonna get up and speak, but from Pleasant Street and, the Fifth Avenue.
Would you be able to?
Go up there?
Yeah, I
mean, I don't know what you're from, I think you finished, but I think it's.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure of some people's time concerns, but.
I'm good.
Yeah, if you'd like to come up, yeah, that's fine.
My name is Carolyn Edwards, and for people who are local, it's Carolyn Cosby Edwards. And I live 2 blocks from the 5th Street site, and I walk, or, well, to tell the truth, most likely drive by it 3 or 4 times a day. And I think that the general objectives, heritage, community, all of those things sound good. But when you look at what's happening, I think that is not the case. And what I just wanted to bring up the issue of apartment buildings, and that's not the character of that neighborhood. I would rather see 2 single family homes with help with the financing, say, give the rest of the money for a down payment so that people can live in a house. And I think that's just the issue that I wanted to really stress, is that the design structures, 10 units, and that space, it looks big on that picture, but when you walk by, it's not that much space. It really is not that much space. So 2 houses would be perfect. I know there's a housing shortage and there's a need for housing, but in one little piece of land, maybe take care of two families and help them with the financing. Maybe the city or agency can give a down payment so that those families can flourish and stay there and then possibly move on if necessary. But I just want to bring up the issue of single family homes as opposed to 10 apartment units in that small space. Thank you.
I'm going up next.
Dottie Fabacy, Pleasant Street neighborhood. I want to echo what Ms. Edwards said. I'm really disappointed that the plan does not have single family homes. We really want single family homes on that lot. We have too many apartments as it is in the neighborhood. So that's all I want to say. Single family homes, please.
Okay, I've only been here like 30 years. Most of you have been here much, much longer than me. But back then, the houses were kind of small. They were cute little houses. What's wrong with those type of characters when we build houses again? You know, where they have, it's the same space and there was 1 or 2 houses. What happened to that? Why do we have to go to the triplexes and all those things? Can we keep the character of Fifth Avenue and Pleasant Street? Quarters is almost a lost cause because they have no, I'm talking as far as the big apartments all around down there. And there's no parking, the trash is littered. Every week my in-laws have property that way. So what's wrong with that? Is that something we could possibly look into, staff? Smaller houses rather than the triplexes and all of that. I didn't mean quarters was lost. I only meant that the culture of that community was destroyed by all of that mess that we have in our community. Yes. I'm sorry to use that word, but that's exactly how it feels. Can you all look into that? Is that something?
Yeah, if I may respond, I think I see that, and that was certainly in our community engagement. That was a question that was raised, right? We had that as part of the voice, was folks saying, well, why not single family houses here? Simultaneously, we had folks saying, well, why not preserve the trees? Why not preserve this space as open space? And we had folks saying, well, why not have a community space, a place for commercial business? And so we had kind of a combination of voices asking these questions. And we really tried to find what's that balance between each of these voices that say, I want community space, I want open space, and I want housing. And I think when it comes to, I will say as an urban planner looking at this property, it's very desirable. The land itself is very expensive. It's quite frankly it's among the most desirable locations in Alachua County, across the entire county. And because the land is so expensive, it does, especially when we run those back of napkin numbers, it demands that we build more houses on that land to distribute the cost of that land across multiple households, and making basically taking that cost and distributing it to make it affordable. And so putting 2 houses will be very expensive in terms of what the price of that house is, what we sell it for. Even with subsidies, it'll be much more expensive than 10 houses, where we sort of distribute that land cost across multiple households, if that makes sense.
Thanks. Member Brown?
You say land costs. Who owns the land currently?
The city of Gainesville owns the land now.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So when you say cost, you're talking about infrastructure costs?
Well, I'm sort of speaking in terms of the location value of the land. And so there's a lot of desire to live in this area from people of all income levels because of its access to jobs, because of its access to amenities. And so, as we've talked a lot throughout this project, we've talked a lot about affordability and perpetuity, this idea that we want this site to be affordable for a long period of time. And so to your point, yeah, the city owns the land, and part of the reason we've considered the land trust or land grant as an avenue is that that is a way to basically keep the cost of the land, low for incoming residents. But we still have a lot of demand for this site, and so we can't get away from the fact that more than 2 families will want to locate in this area. And to that extent, like thinking about long-term affordability, I think if we can impact more families today, we can achieve that affordability going into the future, more easily achieve that affordability going into the future.
Thank you. All the way.
Plan that he had on the screen, I can't recall receiving it. Was that sent to us?
Yeah, it was
Back in-
that's part of the link. Oh, before? That's part of our package this time.
In November.
Send the link.
In November.
No, and this,
I sent us an email the other day. It was a Dropbox link and you had to. Sorry, I believe member Blunt had a.
2 comments. So since the land is already city owned, we can stop talking about the high cost of land. That's strictly in the commission's court to deal with providing the land. They already own. So also, when we talk about affordable housing, there's usually an idea that, as I think you just said, keeping it affordable for the longest possible time. So there's 2 ways to look at affordable housing. You do things like community land trust, et cetera, to keep that particular unit affordable for the longest possible time. Or give it a full ownership so that these people who are coming in, who cannot now afford the market, have the greatest chance for equity growth. Because when people get into affordable housing that is price controlled in the longer term, their equity growth is constrained and they do move. So there's 2 ways to go.
Right. Yeah. In the case of the community land trust, your equity growth is tied to the house itself, and the appreciation in the value of the home rather than the land. Because like you're saying, it's sort of taken off the table. So in some folks see it as a stepping stone between renting and all out ownership. It's that middle area where, yeah, your equity build is a little bit constrained. I will mention, there are projects that we looked at in Gainesville, in Orlando, that provide down payment assistance for all, the ownership of the house outright, including the land, right? So rather than a land trust owning the land, the homeowner owns the land. And what we found is that for that first owner, it's a huge benefit. And in a low-income household can benefit from that. But it's often the case that that house is sold after a few years, and the next family to buy does not experience any of that equity benefit and is typically a much higher income purchaser. And so your window of affordability, like impacting affordability, is sort of truncated. Now you could sort of have a continuous subsidy so that next family has that opportunity to purchase the home. And so there's certainly a solution to consider.
Is there a way, because from what it sounds like to me, one of the most important portions of this is going to be that land trust, CLI, are we doing the ownership thing? I think we need a lot more, I think the whole community needs a lot more information on exactly what pros and cons and how those would look like. I'd like to add that to a portion of what we would like to see back from this is what are the differences between those structures, and like how can we as a community make a decision one of those? Because right now when it's like so theoretical, all these ideas are in the air. We don't know how to say, oh no, we like that. Let's get behind that versus, that type of thing. Is there a way we can get that back into the community a little bit more?
Yes, just off the top of my head, I think our next steps will be for the city to kind of do a feasibility analysis on all the options to see specifically what could work, and then come back to the community and maybe have a system of voting or something like that. Because you kind of have two interests: what's feasible, what can actually be implemented, what's feasible, what is their budget for, and then also what the community wants. So we're going to have to, I think next steps, maybe have a meeting where we can do our research, do some feasibility, look at the feasibility, and then come to the community and then continue the discussion from there. So that would be my thought moving forward. If you didn't want to pass it today, we can move forward into really just trying to get specifics. But the city it might take a little bit of time for this city to get some feasibility. And that's kind of why this was kind of general, because we wanted to kind of have this cloud of ideas, this brainstorm before we started the feasibility step. But maybe we want to, and Mr. Mann or Ms. Deal can maybe talk more of that side of things. That's not necessarily my wheelhouse, but maybe we want to move forward and so we can go ahead and add those specifics in this plan. So
Staff, I think what you just stated that in a way that I would want it. I think we need to get input from the community and take it back to the city, to whoever, to see if it's feasible. You're going back to where we are now, and you're going to do a study without input from the community. I would think you would go ahead and do the listening sessions with the community, get their input, take it back to the city, see if it's feasible, and then move forward. That's what I would recommend.
So Ms. Fox, so the plan is supposed to, and I'm sorry if it doesn't seem that, the plan is supposed to be the vision. So the plan is the vision. And then the next step after the vision was passed.
Who made the plan? Who made the vision? You all made these people didn't make it.
No, ma'am, we had 3 community engagements meetings in each neighborhood.
You all attend.
I'd like to say, you're right, we have had those sessions, but we keep telling you what will work. What we want and what will work to benefit us as the residents, but you want us to comply with your vision for our community, instead of you complying with our vision to empower our community. And I think that's where the bottleneck is.
Want to add some questions for them? Like for them to come back to us?
Yeah.
Okay.
So have we voted to?
No, I don't know that there's a motion on the table or anything like that, and I'm just.
There was a motion.
No.
Was a motion?
No.
I have a note that you would like to move, but you never say it. I would.
Would you state the motion?
May.
Okay, would you state whatever I said?
Would you mind giving us a second? Thank you.
There's a point of clarification.
Hi, as we continue to work with HCD, I just wanted to get clarification on what I was hearing as feedback so that I can help support Corey and Chelsea with sort of next steps and what we could bring forward. So what I'm hearing is, and these, if I'm missing something, I would like to capture that at this moment, would be financing a little bit more understanding with regards to the CLT and the agencies and the decisions and what that might look like. To Member Blount, it was the AMI to see if we can do a range closer to 50%. Maybe bring back more, I think this was more an overall concept, but what I'm hearing is more specific renderings so that there's a actual visual image that reflects the neighborhood. Ownership focus, how can we get this in hands? And that might even be parts of the square footage concerns that we were talking about. a commissary kitchen, if that's feasible, what that would cost, what that would look like. Again, I wrote land ownership, but I think I mentioned that. The CLT and decisions, I have that in there. And then bringing back the feasibility. Chelsea had mentioned something with regards to, sort of voting. Maybe we have this concept more defined, and then something from what I'm hearing is more single family homes that are affordable, and how many we could potentially put on that space as well. And maybe bring back some renderings options and how much something like that would cost, kind of get into the details and do engagement around potentially 2 pathways is what I'm hearing. Am I missing anything in the specifics on here?
I will say, I feel fairly heard with this.
Okay.
I would like, sorry. One section, one thing I'd like to see if we could add into this is some of the, I don't know if this is going to get too far into the weeds, but some of the logistics within a CLT to be able to provide financing assistance to renters who live in a neighborhood who may not necessarily qualify for a mortgage. If you've been paying, I think one of the big benefits we could have of something like a CLT is you could be a little bit more flexible with lending requirements, where rather than having to say you have to meet certain X income, if you can just prove you've paid X number of dollars for however many number of years beforehand, you can safely assume you're probably going to be able to do that. So we can, there's no reason somebody should be paying $1,000 a month in rent when they can afford an $800 a month mortgage. So I guess I'm wondering if you could bring back some of any potential logistics around that.
Absolutely.
That's all even something we can do through that.
Yeah, and that's definitely, housing and community development's wheelhouse. I know that's something that, Corey is very knowledgeable about. And so we'll continue to work together, the GCRA and HCD. I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything that's reflected so that we can go back, we can take sort of this very broad plan, hear what the community has today. And I think we'll continue to hear later on from what I'm hearing, but that these specific items could be more defined. And then maybe we could come back with each topic and say financing or potential.
Member Fox.
Oh,
sorry.
Don't leave because I want to review your motion or you.
We'll lose quorum at this point. And, I don't think that affects anything unless we want to make a recommendation for staff to come directly back to us.
so what I'm hearing is maybe we, instead of the idea of this broad plan that went down before taking this, what I'm hearing is we'll kind of fine tune those details and come back with like specific topics like financing or CLT and have a more specific engagement around each piece. And so that we can hear feedback and then go to the commission with a more whittled down or detailed plan. But if there's something that I'm missing in those overall themes of concern, this would be a good idea to let me know.
One concern that I feel like I've heard that I also don't think is really addressed in this would be if we can come back with those, either take those chunks to the community first.
That would
Proofing through that.
That's what I meant by that, if I wasn't clear.
Okay, yeah, take that back to the community, get more community input, come back to us with some of those things, and then we'll be able to move forward on a recommendation, having been able to been proofed through the community a bit more.
I would agree. Yeah, when I was writing this down and trying to capture it, it was with the intent of fine tuning this in more details, bring it back to the community and have it topic by topic so that we can get feedback topic by topic at that time. And then we'll continue to work together, both HCD and GCRA. But if there's something that is not reflected in that list, please let Chelsea or myself or Corey know.
Yeah, we'll have a little public comment after this to help make sure we're covering everything in that list. But I want to make sure before we lose quorum, if we're going to any motions or anything like that. Are there?
So, if I heard you correctly, Member Fox moves not to move forward with the recommendation until specific questions from the neighbors are addressed. And also look, again, if I heard you correct, you stated, looked at the possibility of smaller houses, or were you meaning to say single family homes?
I didn't include that.
And say, let's, this, yeah, I think the list of questions is probably the list of questions that
Brought up
has.
not as part of the motion.
Yeah, if we can say the appendix A list of questions, and then after this, we will reference appendix A's list of questions so that the community has a little bit more time to speak on this. I know some people didn't get a chance, but there's some other things we will probably, they may want to add on to this.
That is my motion.
Second.
We have a second, we have a motion and a second,
Second,
member Blunt. And all, I'll go ahead and move to a vote. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Carries. So we'll work on those questions, and thank you for your time. All right. Since we're right here, do we have other public questions on this? I guess on this specific piece for Pleasant Street and Fourth Ave, with the understanding that we are going to make sure they come back to the community with some of the things we've heard today. You know,
So my name is Monique Fleming and I live in Porter, and based on our conversation today, can we ask that the questions that were reported by you all, or maybe the list is sent out to us in some form or fashion, so we know what you're going to be looking into. So if we have anything that we thought we heard that maybe is not included in that, because some of us took notes, that we will know that that's what you're going to try to get information for us about. Just to make sure you have it complete based on what the neighbors heard today.
yeah, sounds.
You're welcome.
Anybody else?
Did you all sign in with contact information?
I don't know that it asked for contact information. It just had a line that was placed for Brenner, and I don't think that anybody came and put contact information on.
Would any of the representatives in the,
Maybe if you'll give me your email, I can make sure that I send that list to everyone. And if there a piece of paper, we can get that.
Did we get your name so we can always find you?
Oh, yeah, sure. So I'm Monica Deal, but everyone calls me Mo, so please call me Mo. And with the GCRA, I'm the GCRA manager, and I'd be happy to sit down and, kind of work with HCD, revise this a little bit better than maybe what I wrote, and then send that out to everyone. But you can come and have coffee with me anytime.
Let's or Chelsea sit down, it's their item. You can put it together.
Yes.
Let them proofread.
Yeah.
okay, do we have any other public comments on the, I guess the residential infill plan? All right, seeing no other public comment, let's move down to the downtown strategic plan update. These books?
Yes.
I'm not sure. This one is for the past plan. I don't have the current one. I read this one online, but that was for the past plan.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and members of the public. I'm Eric Bredfeld. I do economic development and real estate work for the city of Gainesville. And we are going to be very brief. We have two agenda items here. One just regarding the status of the downtown strategic plan, and then one regarding one of the implementation features that we've been working on. I'm not going to really go through a PowerPoint. No, I'm not going to go through a PowerPoint. I'm just going to give you a 3-minute. I'm only going to take 3 minutes and give you an update about where we are. And I'll just be covering the first item here, the downtown strategic plan update. Essentially, as the board may know, the city commission adopted the strategic plan, downtown plan, in October. we brought the strategic plan first here to the board. You recommended approval to the city commission. The city commission adopted the plan in October. We went back to the city commission in December following a retreat we had with staff. The public was invited. A number of people came in to talk through some of the principles of the strategic plan. And if you remember, there were 16 big ideas that were highlighted. And we basically got a focus from that group that we would really try to drill down on two of those big ideas. One was formation of a downtown management organization. And one was some feasibility and conceptual analysis of two public improvements. One was what comes next for the Streetery and First Avenue in the vicinity of Main Street. And then also Sweetwater Park and the Sweetwater Park Loop. We took that to the city commission in December. The city commission voted to have us move forward with that, to continue our contractual relationship with MKSK, which was the consultant that helped us with the strategic plan. And then also to provide funding, although they didn't specify the funding source at this point, on creation of the downtown management organization and some of that feasibility analysis on those two public projects. For the downtown management organization, they gave us $20,000 to start drilling down on an organization that we would like to replicate. There were several that were brought up in our retreat: Jacksonville, Columbus, Ohio, Louisville, Kentucky, others. And they also gave us $50,000 as seed money for that organization once it's put into place. Now, the important thing about that is that the consultant's going to help us meet with other institutional partners, and we'll be able to talk to them about the fact that the city has put $50,000 towards this initiative. What are you going to put up? Basically. Okay. So that's the downtown management organization. Then they gave us $150,000 to do the conceptual and feasibility analysis on Sweetwater Park and the Streetery and First Avenue. So we're moving forward on both of those things. We're trying to get under contract with the consultant, which we hope is going to be imminent here in the next, hopefully in the next month or so. And then we will begin the process of going out and talking to various groups about the downtown management organization and beginning that feasibility analysis. So that's all I wanted to highlight on this first agenda item. And then I think Sarit wants to give you 3 minutes on the second update, which is on your agenda.
Okay.
And then we'll be happy to answer any questions if there are any questions.
Yeah, I have a question about the downtown management organization.
Yes, ma'am. We don't even have a name. We don't even have it formed yet. The funding is to help us start the process of trying to form one.
So do you know if it would be like a board?
It could be. Yes, we're going to be coming out to you all to ask your input on that.
Okay, because I want to be part of the board.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Sarit Sela, City Architect with Sustainable Development. A very brief 3-minute update about the project that we call Pleasant Space. It's Pleasant Street, formerly known as Streetery by Flacco's. So in December, the City Commission moved to open up the street by Flacco's to through traffic and provide some space for sidewalk cafe seating, so restaurant outdoor seating. So that was a nice compromise between the neighborhood wish to open the street and the benefits to the business. We met with some of the neighbors and with some staff on site and discussed the plan. And the plan has 2 phases. The first one is already under construction. If you go to First Street, Second Street, you can already see Public Work Works is building there. And what we do is we are holding the existing sidewalk on the eastern side of the street, which is pretty wide. We removed the on-street parking from that block and narrowed down the roadway. So the additional space that is captured from the former on-street parking is being gained for an extended sidewalk on the western side by Flacco's. In this opportunity, this is also an opportunity to work on the stormwater that was a big issue on that block, and new street trees are being planted. And the timeline is by the end of March. So that portion of construction is supposed to be ending very soon. And then the second phase is still conceptual, but what we want to see is some kind of a transition and celebration between downtown and Pleasant Street. And this is actually one of the ideas that was in the downtown strategic plan to create transition areas between downtown and the historic neighborhood. So we see this as a great opportunity to implement this idea. And we started looking into different ideas. And as you see, this is a very much of a concept and that's it. But the ideas are maybe to have kind of mosaic boards at the bottom of the state and county building on the east side. That could be, that building is long, the entire block, and it it's not the entire block, but it's a longer building, and the seals of the first floor are at 4 or 5 feet, so it gives us some room to have mosaic boards along that building that could celebrate the culture, the heritage, the history, and current events, whatever. And we've been working with the county arts council to proceed in the future with a call for artists, and since this is a county building. So that is one idea. Another idea is to have some kind of a gateway or a sculpture, and to have maybe a community events board that would bring, you know, up-to-date community events. And we're open to other ideas. So we've been during this month of February, we gave similar presentations to the county's arts trust, I believe, and then the Parks and Recreation with the city, public art in public places. And we went to the Historic Preservation Board, and here we are today. We have great ideas. We do not have funding yet, so here to just, you know, bring this to your awareness. And as we're working through that, wanted to just to bring it to your knowledge. That's it. Thank you. 5 minutes.
Number one.
Is that expanded sidewalk on the west side enough to get as much seating as they had in the street? Or should there be seating on the west side also?
I haven't calculated the seating space there. And as we go, we will see what's needed. And maybe on the other side, we have other things that to be determined.
So the west sidewalk would end up being what, about another 15 feet wide?
15 feet wide.
The expanded sidewalk on the west side, that would be as wide as the existing sidewalk on the east side?
It's very similar, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What are the street boundaries for the Pleasant Street Historic District? If you can give me the numbers, like.
If you wouldn't mind, I'll have staff follow up on that.
Yeah, we
with
can
you.
send you a link to
Give
that.
you I'll get you.
Yeah, I wanted to know the exact boundaries. I know that my in-laws lived in the side.
Yeah.
Member Northwest?
I just had a question about the width of the roadway that's staying there. What was that based on? Was there any consideration to narrow that, or is that a
15 feet?
typical city street width?
15 feet is the narrowest we can go and maintain emergency vehicle traffic.
Very good, thank you.
Do we have any other board comment?
Was this approved by all the people who live over in Hudson Street? They agreed to this?
And we'll go ahead and move to public comment. Would you like to come up and make a public comment?
In another forum that I attended this month was also a community meeting of Pleasant Street neighborhood.
Thank you. She's done a good job.
All right. No more board comment. We're open for public comment now. Anybody else would like to come up?
But you don't have an idea of what the boundary is? Oh, no, I don't know.
That's just not really.
That's University Avenue to Northwest Fourth Street.
Yeah, I don't want to misquote. I don't want to misquote anything, but.
I'm Sarah Puyana from Flacco's again. I just wanted to thank everyone, the Pleasant Street residents and the board and the commissions for allowing us to compromise and give us like some outside seating that's permanent. We're one of the only restaurants downtown that didn't have any outside seating. And during COVID, my family and I, who have had the restaurant for 17 years, were devastated. And having that ability to have that street for that time was really, we can't thank you all enough. And we're so happy that we were able to get something that's permanent, just in case anything like COVID happens again, or if we have customers that have like higher needs. And there was a big issue with the stormwater, so having that fixed also has helped a lot. Thank you.
Great to hear. Glad to hear. Member Norquist?
I just had one question related to the strategic plan. On the funding that's for the greenway and for the streetscaping, was it MKSK that is moving forward with that, with those designs, preliminary designs or conceptual designs, whatever?
That's correct.
Here, answer the question about the boundary on Pleasant Street. Bounded by Northwest 8th Avenue on the north, Northwest First Street, Northwest 2nd Avenue, which is north of this here, that's where it starts. And then Northwest 6th Street. Of the four.
So you said Second Avenue is from Second to Eighth?
Second to First, 6th.
No, the avenues.
Oh, yeah.
So from Second to Eighth? Okay, and
First Street on the east, 6th Street on the west.
okay. Yeah. It's my family.
Well, is there any other discussion from us on these items?
Thank you.
Thank you. All righty. Guess that's like all of the business discussion. Are there members of the public that have any additional comments? One last.
Good night, everybody.
Please, 3 minutes.
I was gonna say it would be nice that we ensure, and I think they already did that they're local artists.
And the meeting is still going on.
Yeah, if you want to speak. Yeah, please, we're trying to have a, Mr. Shepherd.
My name's Donald Shepherd. I'm the people's representative. And it's something I chose. It's my heart. And it is that, Mayor mentioned about putting in, partisan bicycle area striping. I'm not seeing that there, nor do I see it on the city hall.
Speaking.
Nor do I see it at the city hall posters that they have painted on the walls. I pointed out to the contractor who designed that and did the, what do they call that? When you take and put a wrap. When he did the wrap of that, why didn't he put the bicycle ward in there? It's not in the picture there. It's not in your picture here. And so where's the authenticness to address this bicycle ability throughout our city? As Mayor Ward had taken stated that he wanted implemented throughout our city. this is not being implemented in these designs that I'm seeing. And I think it needs to be. And as far as the board goes, if one implementing a board for over there in Pleasant and the area that is what's that area? Excuse me. But anyhow, that Pleasant Street area from 5th Street, 4th Street and on that back there, that's the history of our city. And it takes you all the way to Waldo Road. And my godfather, James P. Wilmot, he founded Gainesville back in 1921. And he had no idea that the city be torn up or whitewashed in this manner to take and hurt the people. I don't see where this implementation is helping our people, but I'm gonna withhold my inner feelings because I'm not happy of what I'm hearing tonight and not hearing in the letter of intent to these people. That there is like slapping them in the face. This should have been done prior to this meeting so that these people really knew what's going on. I'm an elderly person. I'm 68 years old. And for me to hear this at 68 and know the history of Gainesville and Porter area, this here is not supposed to take and even be happening. And these people will need to go back to the drawing board and implement their designs towards what they're going to do for the people. That's the whole outline of being a commissioner or being a mayor. What is your outline to take and better the city for the upcoming years? Thank you.
Thank you. Additional.
Just wanted to say one more thing. Today, is the day that Malcolm X was assassinated and murdered by the FBI. And I want us to always remember and honor and celebrate Malcolm X. He was assassinated on this day, so I'm going because I have a Zoom meeting, otherwise I would stay here. But if you keep in DC, always honor Malcolm X. And it's my goal to have an event next year, I missed it this year, but next year to honor Malcolm X. Good night.
Anybody else? Any other public comment? All right. Any board member comments? Member Brown?
I heard something earlier regarding the porters units. Someone mentioned issues with roofs and electrical panel boxes. That's extremely concerning.
Yeah, that's so.
And my concern about that is particularly the homeowners, because they're gonna end up with fourth place insurance, which is extremely expensive. So you could be, putting these homeowners in a position where they're priced out. And again, we have another foreclosure on the record.
Yeah, and that's something
How can that get looked into? And I mean, would that be something for this panel that we could do or have someone look into?
I think potentially, I would say right now we don't have quorum, so I don't think we can make a recommendation, but I do think we can ask for some research.
Housing manager behind you.
Yeah, maybe discuss some of that.
You want me to
I would love
speak here or you want me to go?
Yeah, if you can come up here, we'll have you on the camera, I think.
Corey Harris, Housing and Community Development Director. So there's a number of programs that we operate, one being a home repair program. So if anyone is in need of repairs, they can contact our office and we can walk them through the application process.
Yeah, I think I think the issue that we want to raise that I think you should be aware of, or should be something that is kind of a thing coming down the pipeline, that this is something I recently found out in a townhome in Porter's Oaks, is the original electrical panels that came with the house is something that even Tower Hill Insurance will no longer insure. So if there's any lapse in insurance coverage for some of our Porter's Oaks residents, they're going to have to not just get their insurance back, they're gonna have to upgrade the panel, and then they end up at the lowest tier of insurance, which is gonna be some of these extra burdens. So I guess that's something that since Porter's Oaks has been, historically involved with the city. I think there may be some, I don't know.
And since those are attached units, the insurance policies, or the HOA policy and our insurance policy may address that. I don't know, but if it's something you could aid and assist those residences with, this organization or the city, that would be quite helpful.
So again, until we're notified of the problem by the individuals who are occupying those units, we can't help. So I would encourage you and encourage all of those residents that are in here tonight, reach out to us, let us see what we can do.
Well, again, I'd just like to add to that, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
That even with the electrical panels, when you have a roof that's been there for 33 years, you and I know that a regular asphalt roof does not last for 33 years. Then most of them don't have the insurance because the roof has to be replaced. So yes, we will come back. We're going to be meeting not just with the neighborhood, but we'll meet with Porter's Oaks, the owners, and so we can.
Insurance companies not demanding 10-year roofs, 10-year-old.
Yes.
I'd like to ask a question for a single family dwelling, which I had to upgrade my everything electrical before I could get approved for my insurance this year. However, when you say about improvements to the homes, whether single family or when you say the application process, every single time, I am 73 years old. But every single time I applied, I'm not qualified.
And it is income based because the funding that we receive kind of sets those limits. So again, we can't arbitrarily just go out and start repairing everybody's home. We have to make sure that we meet the guidelines set forth by the funding mechanism that we're using to operate the program.
I understand what you're saying. I just think the guidelines may need to be amended. Thank you, though.
Well, unfortunately, we're utilizing federal funding sources that are mandated by the federal government, and we utilize some state sources that are mandated by the state government.
That's have any funds, because we know that that's an issue. We know that when it's federal, and there's definitely certain restrictions and so much.
I would love for you to lobby for more general funds for our department. But unfortunately, a lot of the funding that we receive is a pass through from either the state or a federal government.
Is there any, may I also ask, Mr. Chair, is there anybody at the city who regularly tours these particular neighborhoods? And the only reason I say that is because when I attended the meeting the other night, the Porter's Community Association meeting the other night, I did visit one of the units at Porter's Oaks, just rode by, and we saw where there's one of the overhead wires GRU has fallen down. And it's on one of the trees, and I'm like, they come check the boxes to see how much to charge you for GRU every month. Nobody can't see that wire that's hanging down over a tree. And that's why I'm asking, do we make regular visits, maybe once a month or something of that nature? Neighborhoods, just to see what's going on.
Well, I can't answer that, but I can tell you no one in our department, Housing and Community Development, has the bandwidth to go out and visit neighborhoods in that fashion just to evaluate kind of those things, because we're busy working on some of the projects and initiatives that we have moving forward. So, but I would encourage you that if you see an issue, by all means, contact our office and we can be the conduit to get you what you need. Like, for instance, if you need something with GRU, we may not be the one that could go out and physically take care of the problem, but we can definitely connect you to those that can resolve your issue.
You could tell anybody to put it to go into the my GNV app and input anything like that. It will get followed up. My GNV, you can put it on your phone, you can go to the website, and it goes directly, the city has a neighborhood services coordinator, it goes directly to one of them and it gets assigned to GRU. I would based on all of my experience in public works, I would almost bet you dinner at your choice of restaurants, the line that you see hanging down is either gonna be cable or phone. Because if it's a GRU line, they would have taken care of it.
I was about to say, so you think it might be a cable?
It's probably
They
cable.
are putting the cable in the phone overhead as opposed to.
Or historically they did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you look at utility pole uses, the lower lines are Cablevision and telephone, and then the higher lines are electricity.
Okay.
It's different.
Yeah, because we were just hoping that wasn't it, you know.
Yeah.
But we will
My
check.
my neighborhood, there's been a cable line down for years. And we call cox cable. They don't seem to care.
There's only one way to get them to come out.
How's
That
that?
cable, if that cable is not complete. By whatever means.
I want to talk about something completely different, which was super cool. There was a 5-day festival over this past weekend. And it was called Sarah Sweetwater Greenway Loop Festival. And it was named after Sarah McKnight. And I don't know if anybody in the room knows who Sarah McKnight was, but she owned Sarah's Place. Sarah's Place. So I see somebody in the back. So there's been a group called Thriving Cities that is interested in also supporting the Greenway concept that we're talking about, Greenway Loop. One of the things that they've named it as of yet, and again, I think this is just something that they've thrown out there for the community to think about, but it's Sarah Sweetwater Greenway Loop Festival or Loop. And so this was an amazing place. This was a place where when there was segregation still, the students from University of Florida would come over, and it was a musical venue with lots of jazz musicians, and it was an open facility for everybody to come. And it was a place where people mingled, and they weren't allowed to mingle. And Sarah McKnight was just an amazing individual. Her daughter came and gave a presentation on what she has done for our community over the years. It's something that I was not familiar with. There was a presentation that was done at the Cotton Club. I attended that, and it was just absolutely amazing. And so you'll be hearing, I think, more about Sarah's place and possibly the Sarah's Sweetwater Greenway. I would like to make sure that the MKSK group is aware of this and maybe considers that as part of their visioning process. I know they left. I know they left, so I should have probably brought it up at that time.
That's okay.
But it was the intention of the whole festival was to basically look at the historical neighborhoods around the Sweetwater Branch Loop and try to open up each one of those neighborhoods, find out what they're about, find out their history, find out their culture, find out and have community members just kind of mingle in all these different neighborhoods, try to open up discussions about history, about moving forward and all this kind of things. I thought it was very well done. And again, I found out about Sarah McKnight. There was a documentary that a University of Florida student that is now elderly, is in his 70s. Two white guys that used to play in the band, in the house band at Sarah's Place, did this documentary, and they are just in debt for their life and their success in their life with Sarah's Place. Just an amazing venue, just an amazing story, and I just want to highlight it here tonight because I think it's some of those hidden jewels and hidden gems within our community that we're maybe not aware of. And I think they need to be brought to light. I think they need to be discussed. I think they need to be honored. And so anyways, that's my public comment for today.
Thank you for sharing. Alrighty. Number one.
I want to mention two events. Thursday, 5 o'clock in room 100, Smathers Library. The Proctor program and Professor Zohara Simmons are presenting a program that looks at the civil rights era, the Great Migration, et cetera, from one family's perspective.
Especially after the Black History teaching that is happening Thursday afternoon from 12 to 3 in Marston Library to remind Governor what's his name that humans own their entitlements. And also, on March 17th, this is just a fun thing. I'd like to have you all come to Cypress Road in case I hit a bad note. I need some friends in the audience. On Friday, March 17th, Cypress Road. It's free gas.
Great. No more board member comments. The next meeting date is
Tuesday, March 21st.
Tuesday, March 21st. Hearing no objection, we'll go ahead and adjourn for the evening.
Any comments?
All right,
I'm gonna be
go ahead.
Real quick.
Okay.
You touched my heart, because what you have said is a solution. Because if everyone could hear our personal stories, it would not be a midnight. My grandmother washed clothes and laundered Stringfellows. She was their maid. She was a human laundromat in her backyard, washed up, rinsed up, rinsed up, rinsed up line. So, you know, when you begin to hear what we have experienced and what we've lived, I think you would be more sensitive to why we are trying to preserve our legacy in some way. And so thank you for sharing that. Okay, you can adjourn now.
All right. Thank you. That we will adjourn.